Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain an American horror comedy film called The Revenant. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens with a group of American soldiers driving an armored vehicle through a rural area in Iraq. A soldier named Bart Gregory is at the wheel, talking with his companions. He gets so engrossed in the conversation that he accidentally runs over a small child. Panicked, the other soldiers ask him to keep driving, but Bart gets out to check on the child. Unfortunately, this turns out to be a trap, as several rebel warriors appear out of nowhere. Before Bart can get a chance to retreat, they shoot him, killing him on the spot. The scene then shifts to Bart's funeral in the US, which is attended by his friends and family. We meet his distraught girlfriend Janet, as well as his close friends Joey and Matilda. After the funeral, the three gather for drinks and Janet continues to cry. She claims that Bart only joined the military to get away from her, but Joey contradicts her, revealing that Bart was actually planning to propose to her. He had even bought a ring for the occasion. Upon hearing this, Janet cries even more and abruptly leaves the building. Joey follows her outside and attempts to console her, but one thing leads to another, and they end up making love that night. Meanwhile, in the cemetery, we see that Bart has miraculously risen from his grave. He enters the morgue and is horrified to see his decaying face in the mirror. He then tries to open his mouth, but it is sewn, and the gunshot wound on his forehead is still there. Bart casually grabs a pair of scissors and cuts the threads around his mouth. Confused by the bizarre situation, he then goes to see his best friend, and his wife's best friend, Joey. When Bart knocks on the door, saying it's him, Joey thinks someone is pranking him. He opens the door and strikes Bart in the head with a baseball bat. But moments later, he is horrified to discover that his best friend is still alive. The two then enter the house to discuss this strange situation. Bart takes a sip of whiskey and begins eating a slice of cold pizza. However, it causes him to vomit black liquid profusely, destroying the carpet, much like Joey destroyed his girlfriend. In the next scene, Bart covers his unusual eyes with sunglasses, and the two proceed to the hospital. When they reach the examination room, a nurse is terrified of Bart's appearance, but instead of acting cool, he removes his shirt, revealing a large autopsy scar across his chest. The nurse freaks out at the sight and decides to call the cops, prompting the duo to flee. They then return to Joey's house, where Bart vomits black liquid again and passes out. Soon, morning arrives and Joey summons Matilda since she's a doctor. He explains to her the entire situation and asks her not to tell Janet about it. Bart is still unconscious, and when Matilda checks his pulse, she discovers that he's dead. It turns out that Bart remains dormant during the daytime and only awakens when night falls. She deduces that he is transformed into a zombie who may require blood to survive. Fearing that he may hurt others, she suggests that Joey cut off his head and drive a stake through his heart. However, he vehemently refuses, saying that he would never harm his best friend. He would just maybe bang his wife. When Bart wakes up in the evening, Joey informs him about what Matilda said earlier. He then prepares his favorite meal, only for Bart to vomit again. This makes Joey realize that his friend is in urgent need of blood, so they set out to find it. The duo soon reaches a clinic, and Bart decides to go inside alone. He sneakily steals some pouches of blood, but a nurse catches him in the act. As they scuffle, his sunglasses fall off, revealing his blank pupils. This scares the nurse, and she immediately backs off, giving Bart the opportunity to escape. Afterward, he gets into the car with Joey and drinks human blood from the bags he stole. The trick works, and his skin's condition improves slightly. The two friends then celebrate the occasion by drinking all night. However, as dawn approaches, Bart falls unconscious again, and Joey has to carry him home. When he wakes up later, Joey reveals that he did some research on his strange condition. He theorizes that Bart is neither a zombie nor a vampire, so he decides to call him a revenant, which refers to someone who returns from the dead. Joey thinks he was infected with the virus during his death in Iraq. With no cure for his condition, he must continually consume human blood to sustain his existence. Following this, the two set out in search of blood once more. They ask several homeless people to donate blood in exchange for money. Unfortunately, all of them decline.
We'll fight each other, but we're not doing that.
And Bart becomes so weak that he ends up vomiting in a garbage can. Moments later, a man notices his condition and offers to help, but he turns out to be a thug who quickly pulls out a gun and demands money. When the friends refuse to comply, a scuffle scuffle breaks out between them. The thug shoots Bart in the chest at point-blank range, but miraculously, it doesn't cause any damage. Joey then takes advantage of the distraction as he uses a metal rod to end the thug's life. After this, the two friends load his body in their car, and Bart even feasts on his blood. They eventually dispose of him by throwing him into a nearby river. The next morning, Janet arrives at the house with Matilda. It turns out she learned about the missing body from the police, so Matilda told her the truth. Upon seeing her husband's lifeless body, Janet breaks down in tears and lies beside him. She remains by his side until nightfall. When he finally awakens, the couple then reminisces about their old days and decides to stay together, despite the complicated situation, like the fact that she can practically see his bones, or that she's recently seen his friends. Later that night, Bart and Joey enter a Korean shop to buy drinks, but the owner looks terrified. They soon notice that a robber behind the counter is holding him at gunpoint. After the owner hands over the money, the robber prepares to shoot him. However, Bart, who is ex-army, cannot let that happen. He quickly draws his own weapon and aims it at him. Both men open fire at the same time, striking each other, but only the thug is killed, as Bart is already a zombie and he cannot die. After gathering himself, he proceeds to drink the robber's blood. The two friends then grab some items from the store, before eventually making their way out. In the aftermath of the incident, Bart and Joey feel a renewed sense of purpose about protecting the helpless, and also robbing stores themselves if they feel they've earned it. Hence, they decide to go around town and eradicate criminals one after another. They start off by killing a guy who's attempting to rob someone at an ATM. They then end up killing two men who were assaulting a poor woman in an alley. After murdering the victims, Bart feeds on their blood, which makes him stronger. The next day, the media interviews the Korean store owner, who thanks the duo for saving his life. As a result of their heroic actions, they are nicknamed the Vigilante Sunslingers by the reporters. This makes Joey very happy, but he tells Bart that he also wants to become a revenant like him. However, Bart is not pleased with the idea, considering it more of a curse than a blessing. The next evening, the duo steps in to stop another robbery at a liquor store. However, things do not go as planned this time, and Joey is injured by a gunshot. Bart immediately rushes his friend to the hospital, but it is too late. Joey tragically passes away in the car due to blood loss. Left with no choice, Bart decides to turn him into a revenant and drink his blood. He then carries Joey home and puts him in the bathtub. A few hours later, Joey wakes up as a revenant and is thrilled with his newfound power. Now, if Bart finds out about what he did to his wife, he can't kill him. The two friends now appear unstoppable as they continue their vigilante work. They carry out a string of killings, each time using the same bridge to dispose of their victims. As they gain more fame, more media sources begin covering their actions. One evening, a surveillance camera captures Joey's vehicle, which Matilda instantly identifies. In the next scene, the duo arrives at a warehouse where several drug traffickers are conducting a deal. Without wasting any time, they storm in and begin shooting at the criminals. After killing everyone, Bart checks one of the men's wallets and realizes he was a cop. This makes him feel guilty, and he believes that what they did was wrong. It was. However, Joey does not show any remorse and urges him to move on. Moments later, they are confronted by Matilda, who appears to have followed them all the way. She threatens to contact the police if they do not stop their killing spree. Matilda also warns them that when the sun comes up, she will decapitate them. She then proceeds to leave, but an enraged Joey shoots her in the chest. This shocks Bart to the core, and he scolds his friend, but Joey insists that she didn't give them any choice. Meanwhile, before Matilda passes away, she manages to send Janet a recording of their conversation. Following the incident, Bart goes to his girlfriend's apartment. As they have been living together, he finds her already waiting for him, and it turns out that she has received Matilda's message. With tears in her eyes, Janet asks him to stop killing people. She claims that she can do anything for him and slices her own arm to offer him blood. Bart hesitates at first, but eventually succumbs to his desires and starts drinking her blood. However, he soon loses control and ends up draining her to death. Shortly after, Joey arrives to pick Bart up in a limousine equipped with 2 coffins. He suggests they move to Las Vegas and continue their killing there. However, Bart regretfully informs him of how he killed his girlfriend. He then leads him inside and shows him her lifeless body. Joey suggests decapitating her so that she does not end up like them, but Bart doesn't want to do so, which leads to an argument between them. They eventually point their guns at each other, and Joey taunts Bart by revealing that he slept with Janet after his funeral. Because of this, a shootout ensues, but neither of them is fatally wounded. In the end, Joey declares that their friendship is over and decides to move to Las Vegas alone. After he leaves, Bart eventually decapitates his girlfriend and takes her body to the river to dump it, but he's caught by the police this time, leading to his arrest. Meanwhile, as Joey cruises around town trying to pick up ladies, his night takes a dark turn. Out of nowhere, a mobster gang ambushes him and drags him to an isolated hideout. To Joey's shock, the gang's leader is none other than their first victim, the man they had dumped off the bridge. He has actually become a revenant because Bart had consumed his blood earlier. After beating up Joey for a while, the man takes his revenge by using a chainsaw to decapitate him. The following morning, Bart transforms into a corpse in his prison cell. The cops believe he died of cold, so they transport him to the morgue. In the evening, Bart awakens in the autopsy room, terrifying the forensic examiner. He then escapes from the morgue and returns to Joey's apartment. Bart discovers a box on the doorstep that contains his friend's severed head. Surprisingly, Joey is still alive and moving. A confused Bart immediately takes him inside and asks what happened. Joey, struggling to speak, reveals that their first victim did this to him. He urges Bart to run away before they come for him too. Joey also pleads that his life be ended, as he doesn't want to live in this mutilated state. Upon hearing all of this, Bart takes his head to a construction site. He tells Joey that he loves him and doesn't care if he slept with Janet. With tears in his eyes, he then ends Joey's suffering by crushing his head with a bulldozer. Now that his best friend is dead, Bart loses his desire to live and tries to commit the unthinkable. He shoots himself in the face and hangs himself using Christmas lights, but he ends up surviving every attempt. Desperate, he also jumps in front of an oncoming train, but only manages to dismember one of his arms. Later, Bart sits on the subway, feeling frustrated with his situation. He reads a letter that Janet left in his pocket and begins to cry. A woman approaches him and asks if everything's fine, but Bart suddenly attacks her. When the train comes to a stop, the passengers get on and are horrified to see Bart drinking the woman's blood. He tries to flee the station, but the cops eventually surround him. A brutal shootout then ensues, which claims the lives of many innocent people. Bart takes advantage of the chaos and escapes to the top of a hill. In the morning, our protagonist is once again transformed into a corpse. We then see several people in hazmat suits cautiously approaching to capture him. In the next scene, Bart awakens in a glass container to find scientists and military personnel in front of him. He notices that they have imprisoned several other revenants and sealed them like him. Although the scientists cannot explain what exactly happened to these people, they identify Bart as the one who started everything. The general then asks if he served in the army, to which Bart replies with a yes. In the final scene, Bart and the other revenants are dropped in steel containers via parachutes above Khuzestan, Iran. As soon as they land, the containers automatically open and the revenants scatter across the country to wreak havoc.